All right, guys. Thank you again for joining us today. This is the International Association of Woodcarvers. This is our last meeting for 2021. Today is December the 18th, a little bit after 3 p.m. And I just want to say thank you all for coming on and joining us today. Again, for our last meeting of the year. We thank you all for participating. We thank you for the support, for everything that you've allowed us to continue to do through this year. And hopefully all these meetings have been beneficial. So just wanted to start off the meeting by saying thank you for those of you who join us live, and also those people that come on and join us on the videos each week. We appreciate that. Today in our meeting, we have a special guest that's coming to us from Boise, Idaho. Mr. Eric Owens is going to be joining us here in a few minutes. He's been on with us before. He did another discussion, I think, sometime last year. Eric's going to come on and talk to us about carving relief caricatures. But before we get started with Eric, I just have a few bits of information here I want to share with you. Today in the meeting, we're going to be doing another live auction for a Helvey knife. This Helvey knife I have here is a Floyd Radigan knife handle by Helvey with a Don Mertz blade. So that's the knife that we'll be auctioning off. Same as always, if you're interested in trying to win the knife, make sure you start that bid in the chat. The bids will go through the meeting today. The person that wins the knife needs to stay on at the end of the meeting so that we can gather your information. We accept payment on that knife through PayPal. And again, all the proceeds go to benefit the International Association of Woodcarvers so that we can continue to have these meetings each week. And we have to have money to pay for the Zoom membership. So that's what that goes towards. So again, Helvey knife, it'll be in the chat. Make sure you go ahead and bid often. And the winner of that bid, we'll ship that out to you on Monday. Because this is our last meeting of the year, we have a couple of giveaways that we're going to be doing. We have posted in some of our social media posts that there was a way to go in and sign up if you wanted to be a part of the drawing for these giveaways. So hopefully everybody in the rooms had a chance to do that. One is a gift certificate for chipping away. Thom, correct me if I'm wrong, that's $150 Canadian. And we'll be doing that at the end of the meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. $150 Canadian to Chipping Away. Again, that's a wood carving supply store from Canada. And I'm sure they'll be happy to get your business. They've been a big supporter of ours since we started all this. And I have a banner that's behind this great looking banner back here of these two guys of Chipping Away. But again, we want to thank them for all of their support. They've been really beneficial to our group. And we'll be doing that giveaway at the end. We also have a 1-month subscription to Woodcarving Academy. If any of you all are not familiar with Woodcarving Academy, they have some great membership opportunities out there where you can go out and see past recordings of classes. They also advertise live classes that I'll talk about at the end of the meeting. But check out Woodcarving Academy. Again, they've also been a big support of ours. And we'll be giving away a 1-month subscription to Woodcarving Academy at the end of the meeting. So make sure you stay on after Eric's discussion so that we can do that drawing. Having said all of that, again, we've got Eric Owens on. He's coming to us from Boise, Idaho. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Eric. Eric, again, has done classes. He's done YouTube videos. I think he's actively teaching classes. So we appreciate Eric coming on with us on this last meeting of the year. And Eric, I'll go ahead and turn it on over to you. And then I'll talk about some of the things coming up towards the end of the meeting after you get finished. Thanks, Eric, for coming on.
Appreciate it, Blake. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Gotcha. I had that little pop-up that says unmute myself, and I thought I did.
Yeah,
it's nice to be here with all y'all. I recognize a few names out there, and it's an honor for me to be here the last Saturday of the year and the last one of the year. So I had a good time on the last one. Hopefully we have a good time on this one. Anytime you have questions, as I've said before, I've taught high school for a long time. So anytime, I'm used to kids just popping up and asking questions, even leaving the room to go do something. So I'm kind of used to that. So feel free to put it in the chat or I don't know if Blake will let you unmute yourself and ask questions, but at any time I'll be able to answer questions as we go along. I teach a lot, and I have a homeschool group that comes over to Woodcraft where I teach. I have a Woodcraft class, and then I have a community ed through Boise School District. And so I teach a lot of carving. And one of the things I really enjoy teaching is relief carving, because you're only carving one side. And as long as they get the idea that it's only halfway, if you're carving a snowman, for instance, you're not carving the whole round thing. You're only carving the half of it. If they can get the understanding that you're only carving half of the carving, it frees you up to do a lot of things. Because if I were to carve, for instance, I do relief carving with cowboys, and if I do a big nose, and then I stretch that out to a carving in the round, that's a huge nose. And so with relief carving, you can take a little liberties and do some things that you may not be able to with carving in the round. And as a caricature, it gives you an opportunity to stretch it out or to exaggerate one thing or the other. If you're doing a troll, maybe that nose is much bigger than you normally would do, but it gives you an opportunity to do that. So I apologize, I'm a little under the weather today. I just had my booster shot yesterday, and it is really kicking my behind. So I can barely get my shoulders to go up above my head. So I'll try not to do the wave as we go through this. I want to start with the pattern, and I'll show you the finished product in just a minute. But the pattern is relatively simple, and if you have the ability to be able to do a screenshot of this, that's the pattern that I have. Let me get it a little bit closer. Maybe you'll be able to see it better. And that's the pattern. It's just a skinny cowboy with his hand like he's over the gun. And then the left hand doesn't even have to be on the carving. You can carve off that left hand because it is only half of the carving. So the relief part of this is only half of what we're going to be doing today. So hopefully the green will show up. If you want a pattern, I can shoot that to Blake and give you an idea of what size we're going to use. It's about 6 inches tall, to give you an idea of how big that is, and then it's 3 inches across.
Yeah, Eric, if you'll send that to me after the meeting, I'll post that out on social media so everybody can get access to it.
Will do, Blake. Thank you. And so I carved this out of thin wood, and I say thin wood, and it's about, I used the thickest 1-inch wood I could find. The thickest 1-inch wood I found in my shop this time was 1 1/4 inches. I think this is 1 1/4 inches. So it's about a little over an inch, 1 1/8 inches, 1 1/4. I don't know if you can see that. And that's the wood that I use on this, and it's a good size for just about anything you're doing in relief carving. I don't want to bore you for 2 hours watching me sit here and carve. I know some of you, and you're well versed in carving, so I'll try to just go step by step. I take this through 10 steps, and I'll try to go through step by step. I have a whole series of them laid out here, step by step, what I do, and so hopefully I can get through that before you're bored to death. I start off with that 1 1/4 inch. A 1-inch wood does the same thing, because by the time we carve this thing down, it's going to be smaller anyway. So I take the wood and draw directly on that wood, because I want to know exactly where everything is. And it's like I always tell my students, if you can see it in your mind, you can draw it. And if you can't see it, then we can draw it out and you can see it. So if you can draw it out or see it, you can carve it. So what was that Disney said? If you can see it, if dream it, you can see it. I may have gotten that quote wrong. But the first step is just take your 1-inch wood or 1 1/4 inches, whatever wood you want to use, and draw that on there. So what we're going to do, even though this is only going to be half of the carving, we're going to have part of this leg, and if you want to, you can have part of this arm. But if you got rid of this and you got rid of that leg, you really have half a carving. I had a carving some years ago in Woodcarving Illustrated, and it was just a hiker. And it was really simple, because even though he's got both arms, that might be a little blurry, even though he's got both arms, we don't have both legs. And so it gave the impression that this guy was ready to go for a hike. I like that little embellishment of the face on the stick. That's one of my favorite little things to do. It's not easy to put that face on the stick because it's so small. I mean, you can see that thing is smaller than my finger. So carving a face smaller than your finger takes a little practice. But if you practice a few of those, you get better at doing it. what I always stress about relief carving is the big thing is the details. Sure, we could have done this with a round thing. Didn't have to put the roll in there for the sleeping bag. Didn't have to put a little pocket on here. Could have put more details on here as far as laces and things like that. But the relief carving is up to you. How much are you going to put on there? And so I've written on the back what I wanted to talk about. The first one, cut it out, draw it on. I'll send that pattern to Blake, so you'll have that to do. A lot of carvings we talk about, carve in the round, carve everything. Don't carve in one place all the time. With these, I like to start at the top and work my way down. And so I do the hat first. And so not to bore you to death, but I'm gonna start with put my safety glove on. I'd be highly embarrassed if I cut myself today, and probably have a hard time living that down with my fellow carving members. And so I'll put on a glove. My gloves, can you still see me? I don't see my face anywhere.
No, we lost that video. There it is.
There it is. So when I wear gloves, my gloves are always, for some reason I've got a double image. There we go. I put extra protection on my gloves because I'm a fairly aggressive carver. When I carve, I like to hold it right down here, and sometimes my fingers all right down in there. I always like to protect my gloves. I don't buy expensive gloves because it doesn't matter if they're expensive or not. They don't last very long if you're aggressive. So I take a rubber tip glove and cut the fingers off of them, and then trim them down so that they fit over my hand and over my forefinger and thumb. Seems to make my gloves last a little longer, and I do the same thing with my thumb. I have a rubber tip, wrap it with Coban, and I know a lot of people say Coban isn't strong enough to protect you, but since I've started doing this, I've never had anything more than just a nick. So whatever works for you. The first thing I'm going to do is start with the hat. And when you carve the hat, I always start the top part of the brim here first, because if I start here and then start carving there, I've relieved this strength into here. So I'm going to start right here with the biggest V tool that I've got. And I have a big file V tool. I just like to go in here and just start removing that hat. So whatever tools you use to carve that off, I'm gonna carve. I said I was gonna carve the top, and I'm gonna carve the bottom at the same time. So what I want to do is just really leave that hat. I'm gonna go up to the top of it, and I'm gonna draw for myself, because I've got a brim that's coming in somewhere around here. Maybe you can see, I don't know if you can see all that, but here's the hat, and I want to make it half. So I apologize. My wife is telling me to use the marker. She's not here, but she's still telling me to use the marker so you can see that. So I'm only going to have half of that hat. And then I'm going to have a brim that comes out here to this edge. And then it's going to come down here as well, if that makes any sense. And so using a big tool, this V tool is great, because not only can I come in here with the V, but I can lay it on the side and remove a lot of wood. And so it's just like using a knife, but I don't have to switch tools. So I'm just coming in here with the V tool. I'm taking out this brim right here. At the same time, I'm going to try to round that hat. I started carving cowboys when I first started carving, when I first got out of Boy Scout carving, and took a class from Cleve Taylor and Gene Fuller and a few others. And I've really enjoyed carving cowboys. And so it seems like I make a joke that everything I carve looks like a cowboy. You know, my penguins look like cowboys or whatever, but I enjoy doing cowboys, and there's just a lot of fun to doing a cowboy. I'm going to pull out a knife here and cut off these edges, because I want to trim this wood all the way back to there, bit by bit. And one part of this hat is really easy to carve. Back end, you do the front end, and because of the grain's running this way, as you cut it, it's really hard to get in there, and it gets really hard to take that piece out and then come back to it. So just know that when you're going across grain, it's going to be a little more difficult for you. So if you have a trick or a tip on how to do that, maybe throw it in the chat for somebody that may have a way of doing that better. I know I had a friend, and he just passed away a few years back. He would get to this point, and he loved doing cowboys. He would get to this point, and he'd pull out the Fordham, because he says, I'm not going to sit there for hours hurting my hand trying to go against the grain, just bzzz with the Fordham and do all that. And so I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to keep moving back. I'm creeping back to my line so that I can get all of that wood out of there to round that hat. And a little bit on the back, you're going with the grain, it's easier to cut off. On that front, it's a little bit harder, and so sometimes I'll reverse it and carve up, because now I'm going with the natural way the grain is running, and you can see how easy that is to come off. And so on these, like I said, I'm going to do the hat first. And I'm just going to come around and just make that hat whatever style you want. You look up hat style, cowboy hat styles, and you see there's a hat chart that shows you which one's the Gus hat and which one's the weekend hat or whatever. I don't remember all the names, but if you don't want a cowboy, take your guy and make him with a ball cap. I grew up in the South, and I think everybody wears a ball cap in the South. It's what we wore then. So I'm starting to trim the brim as well. I'm going to go back here, and right here I have the end of the hat, and so I would cut across and see where the back end of that hat's going to go. Again, we're going across the grain, so this gets a little bit wonky on you. So if you got issues with your hands, sometimes that's really hard to get in there and do that. Trim this back just like we trim the front. Come back in here a little bit more and start to round that hat. And at this point, we're almost shaped on the crown. A little bit more wood. You have to decide how narrow you want that hat to be. So when you're looking at this fella, how narrow do you want the hat? Here's the face, nose, chin, bottom of the mustache. So how narrow do you want this hat? Because we're going to be carving back in here to give this a round, that part of the brim that's rounded. And so once you get the shape done, and the shape of the hat, we'll worry about the top a little bit later. Once you're done with that, you're going to come in here with a gouge, and I want to say use a big one, but it's not really big. This is one I like. It's I don't know, somewhere number 7 or 9, and it's I don't know what the width is, but it's a little less than 3/8, maybe quarter. I don't know. Anyway, it looks like a 3/8. And I'm going to start at the back of the hat, because here's the back of the hat right here. I'm going to start back there, and I'm just going to start digging out the groove that the brim has. So I'm just trying to get some of that, too much light in here. Just trying to get some of that head, the hat, carved in. And depending on how far back you've moved the crown, well, it might limit on how far back you can carve this one. So if you have to switch to a smaller one, this one's a little narrower than that one. So this was the wide one I was using. This is a little bit narrower and more of a number 11. That'll allow me to get deeper into that. Okay. I did a TV interview with a local reporter a few weeks back, and he was carving, and then they would show a little bit more a little bit later, and he would say, in the interest of time and the magic of television, we'll move forward, and it would show the next step. So I'm going to do that. You'll continue rounding that hat and getting whatever trim, whatever wrap around, bend over, whatever curl you want to this hat, all the way around the front and all the way around the side. You just dig out this brim. At the back, it's a little bit wider than the front, although I haven't reflected that. And just keep carving that out. That's step number 1 or 2.
Hey, Eric,
sorry.
we have a question in the chat about the size V-tool that you use.
This one I grabbed is a file. It is a number, can't see it. It says number 12 on it. And the size, let me grab a measuring stick. The width of that one, it's the largest one that I've got. It is in the interest of my Canadian brothers and sisters, it looks like it's about 1 centimeter. There. We'll translate it into English, and it might be about 3/8. So this one I use because I love grabbing this one, and it really, when you carve a lot, you learn some of the tricks and tips. And one of the things that I do is use this to outline. It's like if you were outlining with a marker, this allows me to go through and really cut in deep and decide whether that's going to be where I want it to be. So that's my file brand. I like it because it fits in my hand, although I have a few files. I'm a collector because I have a lot of tools, but not necessarily collect them because I have to have that tool. It's because, hey, that one does something the other ones I have didn't do. And so I think I have every brand under the sun. And I don't know that I have a favorite one, although lately, just because it's easier to sharpen, I've been gravitating towards flex cut, because when it ends up needing sharpening, it doesn't take as long to sharpen a flex cut as it does these files. This is some really hard metal and it lasts a long time, but when you have to sharpen the files, they're that Swiss metal that's a little bit harder. So moving forward, I've got the hat carved. You can see all the shape to it. Gave it a little bit of shape to the brim, give a little bit of shape to the crown, continue to add whatever you need to add to that. But now we would start carving the face. And roughly on this face, I'm going to have this part right here. This is the face. This is the top of the scarf with the little tails on it. Here's the scarf coming up under the chin. And if we want to, at this point, if you want to carve the arm in, you can. If you don't, you can take it off and extend this part of the neckerchief out a little bit more. So I'm just going to carve on this face. This face is half of the carving, because if I have two of these, I don't know that I have another one that's not been carved. If I have two of these and I put them together, there's your 2-inch cowboy. If you wanted to carve all the way around and make a 2-inch cowboy on this, if you didn't cut it down to 1 inch, whatever. But we're only using half of the face, and actually the nose is going to stick way out. Marker. Nose is going to stick way out over here, which means if it was a full-size nose, you can see how big that would be. That's a big nose on a cowboy. Nothing wrong with that, but if you're not looking for a great big nose, you don't want to. So what I'm going to do on here, this part right here, I'm just going to trim this down. So whatever hogging out tool you use to take off a lot of wood, at least to get the shape, I'm just going to come in here and give that face a little bit of shape. Be careful when you're carving up towards the brim. You don't want to knock that brim off, because you can glue it back on. That glue mark is going to show. So I sold a cowboy to my wife's boss, and she bought several cowboys and Christmas ornaments from me. And she got it home, and when she went to pull it out of the package, she dropped it and it shattered the brim. So I ended up having to repair the brim. And I can tell you, that's not the easiest thing to do. How do you repair something that's broken because you can see a glue line? Well, what I ended up doing is gluing it back together and trying to line up everything. And then I went through with a little bit of a modeling paste that I use. If you'd like, I'll get it out of here. But a modeling paste, and then painted over it really well. And she said, when she got it, she said, if I didn't know that it had been broken, I wouldn't know. If I didn't know exactly where to look, I wouldn't have seen it. So anyway, I'm just going to trim this face down, and I'm just taking off wood. Again, whatever you use to take off wood, I switch back and forth between a fishtail gouge. This is my Drake fishtail gouge. It's the second tool I ever bought. I've had it for 15 years. This is a 3/8 fishtail gouge. I have two of them. Okay, I have two in this bag. I have some more scattered around the room, but I have two in this bag, and I have this one and then a slightly bigger one. That's a Stubai. Again, another one of those European really hard metal that's lasts forever, but when you have to sharpen it, if you've dropped it or anything like that, it can be a little bit harder to get that down to the shape. But again, I'm just trying to get this face down to a little bit of shape, because I'm going to have a mustache here and a nose here. And then over here, I'll have an ear and hair. If you don't like doing certain parts of the body, find the shortcuts. For instance, if you don't like doing eyes, do no-see-ums. If you don't like doing hair or ears, put the hair over the ears. It's a lot of ways for you to do what you want to do, because ultimately it comes down. I'm going to turn down the screen. I got a light coming in over here. Ultimately, it's your carving. And if you hang on just a second, I got to get rid of this sunshine coming in here. I didn't expect sunshine today because our weather says we're not going to get sunshine. So anyway, getting back to my story, if you like what you're carving, you should carve it the way you want. I just finished an article for Woodcarving Illustrated, and one of the things I say is in the article, you should carve exactly the way you want. I don't like people telling me I should do this or I should do that, or I shouldn't do it that way, I should do it this way. Some people say you should never use sandpaper, and I say, hey, whatever works for you. And so I'm firm in telling newbies, especially people who have never carved, if you want to use X-Acto knife, if that's what you got, hey, I don't have a problem with that. You should carve to make you happy. And if this isn't fun and it's not making you happy, then why are you doing it? And so, yeah, there's frustrations, but ultimately you should carve for you and not for me or anyone else. So through the magic of the internet, we got this face carved. So now the face has got the nose. Let me tone down some light here. You got a nose, you got a big mustache, you've got an ear, we've got a little bit of a sideburn there. We've got some hair back here, and this is the bottom. This is the negative space between the chin and the neck, and so the neckerchief is going to come down through here, and we'll work on that, and we'll work on that part because this is step number 4, and we're going to carve the arms. So we've already carved the face. At this point, you have to make a decision. Are you going to have 2 arms? Because the finished product, I have 2 of them that I have left. Here's the finished product. Do you want arms in your finished product? It's up to you. Nobody should tell you you shouldn't. Just be warned, it will be very fragile. You can see that one's been glued back together. But by the time you take this and you glue it into the finished product, nobody's going to know the difference. Here's the finished product that Blake published on the announcement for this. I left the arm off of this one because, again, it did break. Once you've done a few of these things, what you want to do is make sure that the arm is probably the last thing you want to do. And so I left the arm off of this one and mounted it on a wanted poster that I printed off the internet, which I thought was pretty good. And then I made a frame that's just all beat up, and I probably could have found a much better frame at the store, but being frugal that I am, I'm all for making my own. So at this point, you're going to carve the arms, and I'm going to take that big tool and I'm going to carve here. I'm going to have one big line that I carve here because I want to, at least if I'm going to leave this arm on, I want to at least shape it a little bit so that I can see the vision of it. So I got one part here I'm going to carve out with this V tool. I'm going to come down here because I'm getting shapes right now. I'm not worrying about detail. I'm getting shapes. So even though this neckerchief would have tails here, I'm not going to carve those in right now. I'm going to do this. So all of this is going to go away with my carving so that I leave the neckerchief high and I leave the arms high. And so when I say carve the arms, not only here, but this arm is going to be shaped back here because you're going to see that. On the back of your carving, you're going to see that part of the arm. So it's not like, I guess you could just leave it there and make it flat by the time you mounted it on a surface. No one's going to really poke their nose back in there and look at it, but it is a design choice you have to make. So I know that the arm is going to be somewhat like this. And so if I want to relieve that arm, this part back here is going to come off, as well as this part right here. So I would make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts. The big V tool does it perfectly because I can take off that line. And you can see how close I'm getting when with my tools and my fingers. I'm getting pretty close, but I've got protection on them, and so I can do that. I'm going to make another cut right here from the crook of the arm up to the neckerchief. I'm going to make this at the edge of the neckerchief. And so I'm just trying to get the overall shape, the overall details blocked in. I watch Bob Ross a lot because I've done a lot of painting in my life. And one of the things that he talks about is blocking in the major things. He'll paint the whole canvas and then cover up a good portion of it. Well, that's what you're doing. You're putting in these details, and then you're going to come in here and take it out. And so I'm going to come in here and deepen that cut several times because that's going to be fairly deep. This one up here at the top, from the arm, the crook of the arm up to the knot. Side of the arm, separating the arm from the body, and the part separating that body from the belt. So you're going to have a belt right in there as well. And then back to the fishtail gouge, and this is one of the quickest tools for removing a lot of wood. Feel free to use whatever tool you use. Just know that if you use a fishtail gouge like this and I crash into this piece of wood too much, I may have a little bit of cleanup. But you know, really, we're always going to have cleanup. Nobody that I know carves and never has cleanup on their wood. And if they are, they're a much better carver than I am. So I know that the prevailing thought is carve clean as you can, and I get it. Because if you're a production carver and you need to turn out 20 of those by the end of Christmas, then you don't want to have a lot of cleanup that you got to spend, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes on each carving. So you get an idea of where I'm going. I'm digging out that spot right there. And whatever you use, a knife, I think Ryan Olson could probably do this whole thing with a butcher knife or a butter knife, but I'm not quite that good, and he and I joke about that when we see each other. But I'm digging that out because I want to separate now those two things, because this step is carving the arms. And so the 1 and 2 means, am I going to have one arm or two arms? And so here I've already started carving, and so I'm just going to make a stop cut in that left arm. And I'm doing it this way because that's the way I did the first one and the second one and the others. I don't have any that are back like this, carved going this way. I don't know if that's right hand centric or whatever you want to call it, prejudice towards the right hand or whatever. For my left-handed brothers and sisters out there, feel free to do it backwards the way I do it. I have no problem with you doing it the way you want. So this is about carving the arms. So I've started to carve this one. We'll have to make that decision down the road on whether we want to continue with hands or whether we want to just cut this off. I like the idea of relieving here, and so I'm going to take that big V tool. Again, watch which way your grain goes. If I try to carve up this way, then it might split out on me, but I'm going to come back and not showing up very well, is it? Is that any better? Slightly. So I'm just carving that part out of the arm. There's the arm here, and there's the back end of it. Come in here with a knife right in that groove, in the bottom of that groove all the way down. And then I'm going to come in with that fishtail gouge again. And I use this thing a lot because it is very efficient. And I always teach my students that if you're new to carving, fairly new to carving, and you can't grip a knife because most of the knives have at least some finish on the handle, so they can be a little bit slick if you're sweating, switch to this because it's essentially the same tool. This has a straight edge here. This has a straight edge here. This one I have to grip, and so my forearm gets a little sore after 2 or 3 hours. This one I can hold with a few fingers and use my shoulder. And so it becomes a little bit more of what's easier for you to use. I am a firm believer in you doing exactly what's best for you, rather than me telling you, no, you have to cut it that way. I've had some instructors in the past, not necessarily carving, but some of them were painting, where you have to hold the brush this way, or you have to hold the knife that way. And I'm a firm believer in, there was a commercial some years ago where a guy was on the golf course and he drives up to the tee and it says par 4, and he goes, par 4? I'm playing for me. I'm thinking par 11. And so I'm going, okay, somebody tells me I need to use a fishtail gouger on this one. I'm carving for me. And so if I want to use a butter knife, you know, I'll do a butter knife. If I need to use a power tool, I'm going to use a power tool. So I'm not one to tell you, you have to do it this way. I'm like most instructors. I'm going to tell you how I do it. If you find a better way that works for you, then no problem. So I've relieved a bit of that arm back here. We're still carving on the arm, so now I'm starting to give it some shape. So by giving it some shape, I'm taking off the hard edges. These real pointed edges right here and right here, I just want to take some of those down, because if I can see it and carve it, I can get there. And it just starts to trim up that arm, give it a little bit of shape. Trying to figure out what my next step. That's 4. I didn't do number 5, did I? Okay, I'm gonna skip that one. Anyway, here you have the top knot as well, the knot and the tails. I would just come in here with one cut, because these are higher than the arm. These are going to lay on top of the sleeve, not much. So when I go to carve that, just to relieve them, I just need to take off a little bit of the wood on the arm to make those look like they're sitting on top. And I would carve around here. This is going to be the knot, and then back here I've got more of the neckerchief, which comes up here and then goes back here up under the head, so you can hide some of that. And so I'm going to come back here with a little smaller V tool. I don't want that great big one for this part right here. Take a little bit off right there and make that other wrap of the neckerchief right here. While I got the tool in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and round here and around here, so I can put that knot right there. You may not be able to see that well, but I'm just giving that knot a little bit of shape right there. So that way I can come in and continue trimming it out and start to get some shape to the neckerchief. Questions to this point? Anybody have any questions I can answer for you? All right, moving past to the next step, the miracle of the internet. We've carved the face. We've carved the mustache. That gave this guy a great big mustache. I mean, it's huge. You know, kind of a Sam Elliott mustache. He's got the tails on his neckerchief. He's got the arm carved in. We've worked on the legs. And again, the legs is a choice you get to make. This one's not much smaller than this one, but it is part of the leg. And I've moved the back of the leg forward, because right around here is his wrangler butt, somewhere around here. And so we remove some of that wood to make that leg look like one slides forward of the other. And so at this point, we started to shape the hand. Trying to figure out where my lighting is best so that you can see it. It looks like it's washing out a little bit. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good, Eric.
You get an idea of where the hand is. I've got a little bit of a thumb right here. Let me outline it, because you probably can't see it in the light. There's the thumb on the hand. And in this one, I have the hand completely covering up the holster. If you want to, you can cock this arm back a little bit more where the elbow comes up higher. And that way it shortens this arm, and now you have room to put in the gun. But you know, it's, again, these are all the little details you want to put in. Well, how much details do you want? So do you want just details of a leather holster? Do you want braids on, or not braids, brads on it where it's got brass things that are holding the leather together? How big of a thumb and how many of the fingers are you going to add in? I mean, are you going to really detail the hand, or is it just a hand laying there? What does the neckerchief look like? What kind of a big mustache is this guy going to have? So it's all about details from this point forward, because you've got the major structure. You got boots, you got pants, you've got a holster, you've got a hand, you've got room for a belt, you've got the sleeve, add folds and wrinkles, you've got the tails on the knot on the neckerchief, so that you can add all kinds of details. You've got a mustache here that you can shorten, make a Fu Manchu, whatever you want to out of it, and you've got a neckerchief here. You've got the style of hat you want, and you've got a lot of design decisions to make from this point forward. The question is, what do you want to do with it? Where do you want to go? And so I've carved a little bit more on the next one, and we've got the legs carved in. I'm looking at a side profile, the back side. We've got the arms there. Here's the arm. We've got the hat. We flip it over to the flat side. And I didn't shape. I was doing it each step, one more step each time. I didn't do it all on this one. But you get the idea. There's the face. The mustache would come here. If we wanted a mustache, feel free to not put a mustache, put a chin in there. Hair, ears, more hair back here. Hands, sorry, I'm dropping it. Hands, holster, belt, neckerchief, shoes, boots, hiking boots, whatever it's going to have, and then shape these legs out a little bit more. I haven't fully shaped this one out, but you get the idea, and I've further trimmed the arm here. So I've gotten thinner and thinner and thinner on this arm. And so you get an idea of where I'm going with it because you've seen the first steps. Now you see this one. A little bit further, this one's a little more finished. It has a few more details. So let me start at the top. His hat, kind of a beat up looking hat. The face, I don't know if you can see really in that face. This particular relief carving doesn't require much of an eye and much of a face, because I've got the nose up here. Here's his nostril right here. There's the rest of the nose. There's that rounded of the nose. There's the eye with some wrinkles in it. It's not showing up very well, but you get an idea of where the eye is. There's the sideburn, ear, hair, neckerchief, a little bit of separation between the neckerchief and the head. Hand, with a little bit of the pistol showing there. You see the what's that? The hammer right there. And so that's another layer of detail you've added to it. I've got fingernails on this guy. I've separated the fingers. I've got a holster that I've not finished with because I got a indentation here and an indentation here. I could have indentations up. Feel free to gussy that up all you want. I've got a belt. I've got a belt buckle here. I've got a button on the shirt here. I didn't add a loop here for the belt, but I did have a little cut in where the shirt is. We've got the boots. Details on the boots, details on the cuffs on the bottom of his pants. The heel. And then we move on to almost completely finished. So this guy's got his hat. We've done that one. There's the face again. That's a big, huge nose. If you don't feel comfortable with that big a nose, make it smaller. Big mustache, big cheekbones, big chin down here. Big separations between the neckerchief slide or neckerchief itself. There's the extra handout here with the fingers. Be very, very careful when you're out here because this is fragile. The grain runs this way. And so the more you carve on it, the thinner it gets. The thinner it gets, the more you're liable to knock that around with your thumb as you move around it. So you've got to be real careful. The shirt, you have a little bit of detail. I don't know if it'll show right there. There's a detail, looks like a button right here. Belt buckle, belt, another gun with a hammer right here. Hands, I'm not completely finished those hands, but you get the idea of what it looks like. There's his cuff, his sleeve, the tails on the knot, his hair, back of the hat. A little more details on the holster and a little indentation on the bottom of the holster so it looks like it's relieved under there. More of a boot. Pant seams coming down both sides. It's all those little details that you can put in. This guy even has a strap for his holster, tying it down right there. All of the details you can add, whatever you can get in terms of even being able to put some embellishment on the boots, maybe coming in here with the soles. So we mark the soles on the bottom of the boot and where they come up, whatever details you want in here. Again, it's your carving. You should make this carving any way that you want. And so for me, looking at the time, and for me, here's the finished product. This one I had enough ability to give him a cigar sticking out. I don't think I've got any buttons on his shirt, but I've got buttons on the gun, fingernails on the fingers, tie down for the holster. His belt buckle is a little bit, it's got a little more color. It's a gold color, and his fingers on there. And so the final one is the one that I mounted that I showed a few minutes ago. Let me move this camera back a little bit more so you can see more of it. I found a wanted poster that I thought looked good on it. Carved it, more details. Mounted that on a flat back and then screwed that flat back to the frame, and voila, through the magic of internet, we've carved that in 40 minutes or some such like that. To finish, I usually take a Dremel with a mandrel on the end of it and a couple of scuff pad pieces that I cut out and use that to soften and burnish it. And then I come back with very watered down paint. The paints that I use are the Americana Deco Art ones, and I water them down quite a bit. It's almost a very thin wash, more than it is a lot of color. The color comes from adding different layers. So the more colors the more layers you add, you can go back and add more and add more and add more to make it darker, but it still allows a lot of the wood grain to show through. If you can see that on the hands, you can still see the wood grain on the shirt. So I don't want to take away that wood grain from the particular carving itself. I want that to be able to, the customer or the recipient, whoever I'm giving it to or selling it to, I want them to be able to see that it is an actual wood carving. I am done with that. In terms of carving, you've got an idea, I think, of knowing where it's going and what we're going to do with it. Again, we're starting with, where's my original one? Starting with the original one. I'll send Blake the pattern. Feel free to embellish it. I'd love to see what you have, what you do with it. I'd love to see different changes and things that you add to it, but I'm done carving. Like I said, that COVID booster shot is kicking my behind, so
Hey, Eric, can you tell us a little bit about classes maybe that you have coming up, or YouTube videos you're going to be doing, any of that kind of stuff?
So it's the Christmas it's Christmas break for me. I teach high school, and so I will be doing at least one and maybe two series of videos this this break. And I was looking for the carving, and I don't see it right now on my shelf, but it's going to be something similar to this. I'm going to do one on cowboy busk, because this was the first thing I started carving when I started taking classes from Cleve Taylor and Gene Vic Otto, or Gene Fuller. And so there are local carvers that belong in the CCA, and I took this idea, and I've done, I don't know, 40 or 50 of these busts, and I like them. Head separate from the body. The body's one thing, the head separate. So I know I'm going to do one just like this. And in that video, what I want to do is show how to do it with the head attached and with the head is separate. Getting off the camera. So I want to do one of those, and I don't know what the second one is. I've got 10 ideas, and I just got to figure out which one I'm going to have time to do that. So for those of you in the local area, I teach at Woodcraft in Boise. If you know where that's at, I teach there. I have a class through them. I have a class through the Boise Community Ed every time they do a spring, winter, and fall session. And I've recently picked up a homeschool group for the last 7 or 8 months, and there's 12 to 14-year-old kids that come over and do carving, and they seem to have a lot of fun. I'd love to go teach more. My teaching and traveling schedule is limited to the school year. That may be coming to an end soon. I'll turn 60 here real soon, and then teaching in the COVID year has not been a lot of fun. And so it's at that point you start going, okay, I have to retire by say 65. So what's my strategy look like between now and then? And it may be moved up. So that if I do that sooner rather than later, I'll be free to travel a little bit more and teach carving. So mostly I teach in the West. I haven't taught in the East yet, but I mostly teach in Oregon, Idaho, and Washington so far. So, but hey, California and Montana, Colorado, give me a call. Blake should know how to get a hold of me. So let me know.
Well, thank you, Eric. If anybody has any other questions for Eric, if you'll go ahead and either post those in the chat or unmute and go ahead and ask. Okay. Well, Eric, thank you for coming on. Again, I know it was kind of short notice, a little bit of a short notice, but we appreciate you coming on, doing the demonstration. It looks like you've done quite a bit of work to try to get this prepared, and we always appreciate all the work that a carver goes into doing one of the presentations for us. To have that many already lined up, that's pretty fantastic. So we appreciate that.
Right.
Just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming up. I'm going to leave the knife bid or the knife auction open for just a little bit longer while I go through these things. We'll close it at the end of my talk, and then I'm going to turn it over to Thom at that point so that we can do the drawings for the giveaways. Coming up, there's some workshops that are posted out on Woodcarving Academy. Again, make sure to go out and check out their page and look and see all the offerings they have to offer. Some of the live workshops that's going on. I know Dave Stetson has one. He's on with us today. That's going to be starting January the 8th on how to carve facial planes. If you're interested in signing up with Dave, you need to go ahead and contact him. I think he's doing that based off of a cutout, and you'll need to get signed up and then get everything you need for that class. Ryan Olson's going to be doing a flat plane caricature class. That one also starts on January the 8th, but I think his and Dave's are at different times, so you can actually double up with them and do both classes. Reach out to Ryan Olson if you're interested in that. I saw today that Dylan Goodson, if any of you know Dylan, he's going to be doing a class starting January the 5th. He's a relief carver, fantastic carver. He's come to the Charlotte show a few times, so I've talked to Dylan quite a bit. He's going to be doing a relief carving class on January the 5th, so if you're interested in that, reach out to Dylan. In February, Bob Hershey has a class lined up on carving Easter Bunny. That one's going to start on February the 19th, and I think I saw Bob Hershey there. He's holding that Easter Bunny up as we speak. So reach out to Bob if you're interested in that. Janet Cordell has a class. She's come on and presented with us in the past. Her starts on February the 7th, and it's Understanding the Face. I think it's also a facial plane study. It's a little different. She does some realistic type stuff. So reach out to Janet Cordell. Dell Green has a class starting February the 5th on taking a rough out and changing it to do a different carving. And I think Dale's on with us today. Also, Dale presented for us last week. So if you're interested in that class, reach out to Dale. And then in March, Dave Stetson has another class that's lined up on carving butterflies and the bag lady along with a gentleman friend. That one's going to start on March the 12th. And I think Dave's probably going to take people for that class after his January the 8th class starts. So check those things out. Go out on Woodcarving Academy, see what's available. Make sure you get involved. Sign up for some of these classes. It's very, very beneficial. I've taken quite a few, and it's really helped as far as my carving and how I've progressed. So a little bit about International Association of Woodcarvers. Thom and I have worked diligently to try to get some people lined up for meetings after January or starting in January. We're still taking people to sign up. So if you know of anybody who might want to do a demonstration or present with us, make sure you have them reach out to us. I won't go through the dates yet. We'll be posting all these on social media, so keep an eye out for those. And Thom and I will try to put those everywhere that people see social media. We've got Bob Hershey. We've got Tom Wilkinson, who is probably a fairly new carver to most of you all. He does some fantastic work. Check him out on Instagram. Kevin Applegate, who's presented with us in the past, will be on. Dave Francis will be on. Another carver that not a lot of people may be familiar with, a guy named Rich Snyder. He'll be on with us. Talked to Joe Yu just a few nights ago. Joe and I spent quite a bit of time talking. He'll be on with us. And then Roger Bean just signed up this morning to come on. And a lot of people probably know Roger. He's going to present with us. So we've got a pretty good lineup that we're working on. We're going to be taking some more people for January. So make sure you reached out to us if you're interested, or we may be reaching out to you to see if you want to present. So having said all that, just a few more seconds here to close the bid on the knife. If anybody else wants to bid on that right now, it's $305. And again, all that money goes to the International Association of Woodcarvers to help us with these meetings. Thom, do you want to leave that open until we get finished with the drawing, or you want to go ahead and close it?
Yeah, we can leave it open while we do this, these other two if you want.
Okay, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. We'll do the drawing for the Chipping Away gift certificate and the 1-month subscription to Woodcarving Academy.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for attending today. I need to thank Chipping Away, Woodcarving Academy, and Helvey Knives for being great supporters of ours, and all of you that are great supporters of ours. Bear with me. I hope my technology works here. Can you guys see that? That's the wheel?
Yeah, it's up.
All right. So the first draw we're going to do is for the $150 from Chipping Away. So number 61, which is Bob Martin. And number 2, I'm sorry, what was that? 72?
72.
72 is Thomas Nelson. So I will get in touch with those people and send you an email. And Blake, you want to close the draw now for the knife?
If anybody else wants to bid on the knife, please go ahead and put it in the chat now. Okay, we will go ahead and close the bid out. The winner is Galaxy A51. If you will stay on with us at the end of the meeting, we'll go ahead and gather your information. Again, we want to thank everybody who's come on and presented with us this year, everybody who's attended live meetings, everybody that's gone out and watched our videos. You know, we do this to encourage carvers and to help build the carving community, and it takes all of us. So thank you again for all your support during this year, and look forward to seeing you all in January. Everybody have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And again, watch for social media, and we'll get that information out to you all as far as presenters that's coming up in January. Again, thank you all for joining us. And this is the International Association of Woodcarvers. Thank you.
Thank you.